guys, what's up? It's me, P2, and we are here on the final Saturday of October, and that means just 2 more days into Halloween. But we got this final video before the special Halloween ending, and we are joined with our co-host, rocking his new little Shrek hat, and of course, our new little co-host, Hisui and Zorua. Say hi. Awesome. But today, guys, we're going to be going my favorite, most anticipated video I've had planned for this month, and that is the creepy Pokemon Iceberg. Creepy Pokemon Iceberg is going to be so much fun to get through. This is part 1 of the part 2 special. Part 2 will be coming out on Halloween, obviously, like I have stated, and I am so excited for y'all to watch. Just a quick little thing. I think I cover it again later in the video, but Iceberg goes from the mainstream, everybody knows at the very tippy top, but as you get lower through the iceberg, you start to see very, very different things that you wouldn't see anywhere else, and this time, it's creepy stuff. So, without further ado, turn the lights down, and let's get into it. Entering the second floor of a certain building in Lumio City will cause the music to stop and the lights to flash, followed by a ghostly girl materializing behind the player and gliding towards the bottom of the screen in a frozen walking animation. She will then mutter, "No, you're not the one," before floating off screen and disappearing completely. Creepypastas are horror-related legends that have been shared around the internet. Creepypasta has since become a catch-all term for any horror content posted onto the internet. These internet entries are often brief, user-generated paranormal stories intended to scare readers. These certain tales are Pokemon-related, and more will continue to have specific stories through this iceberg. The ghost of a Marowak haunts the Pokemon Tower in Lavender Town. This ghost is the mother of Cubone. You fight her in red, blue, yellow, fire red, leaf green, and most recently in the 2 Let's Go games. The Lavender Town Syndrome, also known as a Lavender Town Tone or Lavender Town Suicides, was a peak in suicides and illnesses of children between the ages of 7 and 12 shortly after release of Pokemon Red and Green in Japan, back in February 27th, 1996. Rumors say that these suicides and illnesses only occurred after the children playing the game reached Lavender Town, whose music had extremely high frequencies. That study shows that only children and young teens can hear, since their ears are more sensitive. Obviously, these aren't true. If they were Pokemon, definitely wouldn't be around. But it's interesting that some people, including me, at the age, believe this was real. It was terrifying, and one of the most popular stories known. Residence of my co-host, Gengar. Let's take a listen, shall we? Missing No, short for missing number, and sometimes spelled without the period, is an unofficial Pokemon species found in the video games Pokemon Red and Blue. Due to the programming of certain endgame events, player can encounter Missing No via a glitch. It is noted as one of the most famous video glitches of all time. This glitch does a lot more than just a weird sprite, And I recommend looking at some of the weird glitch videos, not going over Missing No itself, but looking at some good creepypastas. But with that, how about we move lower down? The Great Pokemon War, or the Kanto War, is a supposed war that took place years prior to the events in Pokemon Red and Blue. The reason as to why the war was started are unknown. What is known, however, is that Lieutenant Surge, the gym leader of Vermilion City, was most likely a soldier in this war. When you first encounter Surge in Vermilion City, he rambles on about how an electric-type Pokemon saved his butt during the war. But he never goes into any detail as to what the war was. He's also depicted. I can't believe I just messed that up.
Pokemon are only weak to ground types, so I'm gonna go over to my Sandslash, one and only ground type
everything
Pokemon.
now was a surgeon sometimes.
Voltorb is really fast. It knows Screech to lower your defense. Also Tackle and Sonic Boom, but
why Blue supposedly
it's really not much of a match for any ground type Pokemon. If you don't have something like a Sandslash, go catch a Diglett in a Diglett's cave. You can pretty much single.
Gengar and Clefable have, through trademarking and beta art, been proven to have some of the earliest Pokemon made. Coincidentally, they are also some of the first Pokemon when you list the original 151 by index number, with Gengar appearing shortly after Clefable. Also, Clefairy was originally going to be the mascot of Pokemon instead of Pikachu, so it's going to be a very important Pokemon. This theory states that the Gengar that you usually see are actually the shadows of Clefable, with how similar they look in design. This is about creepy Pokédex entries, some of which I've actually done a video about earlier this month if you're interested. Some of which are about Cacturne, Haunter, and more terrifyingly meaty descriptions of our beloved pocket monsters. For example, Yamask, the wandering spirit Pokemon. Each of them carries a mask that's used to be its face when it was human. Sometimes I look at it and cry. Computer Warrior Porygon, although most commonly known as Electric Soldier Porygon, is the 38th episode of the Pokemon anime's first season. Its sole broadcast was in Japan on December 16th, 1997. In the first episode, Ash and his friends find a local Pokemon Center and that there is something wrong with the Pokeball transmitting device. To find out what is wrong, they must go inside the machine. This episode contained repetitive visual effects that induced photosensitive epileptic seizures in a substantial number of Japanese viewers, an incident referred to as the Pokemon shock by the Japanese press. 685 children across Japan were taken to hospitals, to remain hospitalized for more than 2 weeks after. The shares of Nintendo, the company that produced the games that they were based on, fell about 3.2%. As a result of this incident, Nintendo ordered the episode be pulled from rotation and has not aired since. The Ruins of Alph is a historical place located in Johto region, in the southwest of Violet City, with entrances to the south of Johto, Route 36, and west of Johto, Route 32. It is a famed place for archaeologists who are researching the ruins to discover the mystery of the mysterious Pokemon called Unknown. The ruins are filled with unknown. Once any of the 4 side puzzles inside have been activated, this place itself isn't too frightening. However, the music, now that's a different story. Here's a snippet. Often referred to it as its code, the Berryman script, the buried alive model was to be found on the final story of the Pokemon Tower. It is now what replaced the Marowak Ghost. According to the scripts assigned to it, the buried alive model was intended to be the boss of the tower. A battle will initiate where the buried alive trainer class will battle you. The battle is impossible to win. Once losing, a death screen pops up and it says, "Finally." raw meat. With the game over, there was Show buried alive, dragging Red down into its hole. I love this story, and it was something to up the creepypasta level to Lavender Town. Not that I needed one. With that comes an end to the tip of the iceberg. Now, let's descend lower. Pokemon, such as Yelmaskian, are actually people who had turned into Pokemon. That means that once dead, or possibly not, their spirits kind of get reborn into the Pokemon. This is similar to the belief that our spirits can turn into animals as well as after a human life. Some other Pokemon that can be used are humans are like Spiritomb, Ghastly, and Phantump. In the original Red and Blue, when you encounter your rival in Lavender Town, he asks whether or not you let one of your Pokemon die. At this point in the game, he no longer has Eradicate that he used in the previous battle. Your rival, before this took place aboard the SS Anne, your rival's Eradicate sustained serious injuries from the battle, but because of crowding confusion of the luxury liner, he was unable to make it to a Pokemon Center in time, and his Eradicate passed away. The real reason your rival in Lavender Town is to begin to lay his deceased friend to rest. Despite all that, your rival never outwardly tells you you're responsible for the death of his Pokemon. He hides his grief, and instead of channeling that energy into the motivation he needs to continue his quest to become the Indigo League champion. The death of his Eradicate effectively destroys your rival's impish childhood innocence. N's room is a room in the Pokemon League Plasma Castle. It's that of a child, and has eerie music to go along with it. And is personally my favorite rival, but man, that's creepy. And it's actually the main theme of this year's Halloween event.
Come, little children, come with me. Safe and happy you will be. Away from home, now let us run. With Hypno you'll have so much fun. Oh, little children, please don't cry. Hypno wouldn't hurt to fly. Be free to frolic, free to play. Come with me to my cave to stay. Oh, little children, please don't squirm. These ropes I know will hold you firm. Now look to me, the pendant calls. Back and forth your eyelids fall. Oh, little children, you cannot leave. For you, your families will grieve. Mine's unraveling at the seams, allowing me to haunt their dreams. Do not wail and do not weep. It's time for you to go to sleep. Little children, you were not clever. Now you'll stay with me forever.
Pokemon Creepy Black is a very strange Pokemon hack based on the original Pokemon Fire Red. Unlike your everyday Pokemon hack, this one revolves around the creepypasta of the Pokemon game. The game hides itself as an original Pokemon Fire Red version, but has some weird instances that will freak you out. For example, upon starting the game, you will see a Ghost-type Pokemon that will suddenly appear in your party. When using Ghost Pokemon, there can only be one move: Curse. Using this move is very creepy, and it literally kills the opponent Pokemon. Prepare to sense and feel the mysterious presence of darkness and death in this creepypasta video game. Bad Egg in Generation 3 is a phenomenon represented in Generation 3 to Generation 4 Pokemon games and in Pokemon Home that result from a corruption of Pokemon data so that the checksum does not match up with the data's calculation. In Generation 5, sometimes bad eggs can hatch into ... or another bad egg. I know that it isn't the scariest part of this layer, but we're moving on to the middle. And let's start that out with something a bit creepier. Creepypasta based off of the video game. The unnamed narrator plays a hacked version of a classic game, Pokemon Red. And since he's assuming it's a he, as gender is not given, never played this particular game before. He takes it home before realizing the game is hacked. Furthermore, he can't continue the game from where the previous player left off. Whenever he hits the continue button, he just gets a message. No. Frustrated, the narrator starts a new game. But to his surprise, he likes most of the alterations made to the game. Instead of playing as a silent protagonist who could be anybody, he plays as a fleshed out character, Steve, with his Charmander, Mickey, his brother Mike, as a rival, and a realistic relationship and dialogue with various NPC characters, and a cool sprite to boot. And from context clues, the narrator is able to infer the hack game takes place a year before the actual Pokemon Red and Blue games. As the game goes on, Mickey proves to be a powerhouse. She handles type disadvantages extremely well, and evolves earlier than is typical for members of her species. And Steven gains an actual reputation from his wins, with NPCs he's never met before eventually recognize him. And to top it all off, Steven beats Mike in the championship battle of the Pokemon League in a way that the narrator prefers to the Pokemon Red and Blue way. After the match, Mike persuades Steven into trading Mickey to him, so the two of them can complete their Pokédex. But the trade is interrupted by a loud snap. The game actually freezes. The narrator starts the game and finds that he is resuming play from a year, in game time at least, after the previous scene. Steven is visiting the grave of Mickey, who is implied to have died as a result of the failed trade. He appears to have completely given up on everything he achieved due to his grief, what doesn't seem to have gotten any better, and the narrator draws some chilling conclusions about why some things in the vanilla Pokemon Red and Blue are the way they are. After a time, wandering around aimlessly, wondering what he was supposed to be doing, the narrator does eventually find a path forward. Steven does know one way to bring Mickey back and goes for it, but he ultimately pays a terrible price. Pokemon Lost Silver is a creepypasta story about a disturbing haunted Game Boy cartridge for the Pokemon game, Pokemon Silver. After playing the game, you're stuck in a tower with the Runes of Alph music playing. More disturbing things happen until you face off against Red, with your dead Cyndaquil and evil Celebi. I recommend watching my video game video from last year, where I actually narrate the story. In Black and White, she simply appears on a post-game bridge. Talking to her causes her to disappear. An NPC tells you that a young girl used to play in the area with her Abra before the bridge was built. In Black and White 2, she actually continues the story, where most people would have learned about this. However, Black and White 2 took a little bit more searching and NPC conversations to actually meet this ghostly girl. She was a part of my video earlier talking about creepy moments in Pokemon. And if you haven't watched that video, I highly recommend it. And let's move on. The Old Chateau is a haunted mansion and houses many ghosts. Ghost-type Pokemon. The mansion is infested with ghost-type Pokemon, just ghastly from exploration, including a Rotom that haunts the television. The player must trump through the TV to get to Rotom and appear and battle them. From there on, they can try and capture it. Little Girl Ghost. The ghost of a little girl appears in one room. The player cannot interact with her, and after leaving the room, she is nowhere to be found in the entire mansion. Old Man Ghost. The ghost of an old man, possibly a butler, haunts the dining area. He glides across the room and disappears in the kitchen. Glaring Statue. A statue of a Pokemon appears in the main room. It glares at the player if they try to speak to it. Haunted Picture. In an upstairs room, a haunted picture appears. It will close its eyes if the pair walks close to it, and upon going to another room, its eyes will follow them. It's highly implied that it is a Gengar, since the player can find Gengar in the room if they have the Generation 3 games on the bottom of the 3DS cartridge. And of course, Rotom haunts the television upstairs. Mimikyu, the disguised Pokemon. Its actual appearance is unknown. A scholar who saw what was under arrest was overwhelmed and by terror and died from the shock. In the Pokemon series, Mew is an ancestor to every known Pokemon, containing information on all other Pokemon and its cell structures, so it's the ability to use all technical and hidden machines. A group of scientists dream of creating the world's greatest Pokemon. Their plan was to clone Mew and amplify the creation's power, resulting in one of the artificial Pokemon, Mewtwo. This theory states that more than just Mewtwo was created. Ditto may have been a result of a failed Mewtwo from the scientists. The color and shiny improvises that has a lot of similarities to Mew. Well, it seems we'll have to cut that part here. I'll release the other half on Monday for Halloween, so stay tuned for that. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed, please subscribe for the second part. And with that, let's head over back to me and Gengar, shall we? I told you guys not to film without me. Well, guys, that's it for today's episode. If y'all enjoyed, I will see y'all next time on our very, very special actual day of Halloween special, where we'll cover part 2 of this creepy iceberg and go down even lower. So, from my family to yours, I'll see y'all, and I hope you have a great October. Adios.